Okay. So this is going to be my first Deathless Nuzlocke kind of vlog-ish thing. So before I get into what a Nuzlocke is with Pokemon, for those of you who do not know and do not know broadly how I'm playing it, the reason I'm doing this is because I feel like as I've played these games a lot, I have um, a lot of knowledge about them. And also, I really enjoy doing Nuzlockes and I enjoy spending my time attempting, especially deathless ones, because they are particularly difficult. And I figure that if I'm going to do it, I might as well stream some of it or vlog some of it, just as kind of like a stream of consciousness and to be able to come back and view these at a later time. So what we're gonna do for now until I find better ways to do this, we're going to do this in kind of a odd way. So I'm using Zoom, so excuse all of this. But basically, let's talk really quickly about what a Nuzlocke is, um, and a little bit about what my specific rules are, because they are a touch different than some other ones. So the concept of a Nuzlocke for Pokemon games is that they're just challenging. And specifically, I am going to be trying to do one of each of the mainline series of Pokemon games, in a deathless Nuzlocke. So what that means, broadly speaking, if we go over kind of the main rules of what a Nuzlocke is, and then a little bit of what a deathless Nuzlocke is, the difficulty in a Nuzlocke comes mostly from this first rule, which is that you can only catch the first Pokemon you encounter on any new route or in any city. And this counts as two different kinds of Pokemon, which are typically how you encounter them. Either you're going to physically encounter them, you're in the wild, you're running through grass, and you get an encounter. The way this rule works is the first Pokemon that you encounter, that is the only possible encounter you can try to catch on the route. So in this case, if I run through a route and I get a Rattata, I must catch that Rattata once I have Pokeballs. Um, Before you get Pokeballs in the game, it doesn't count. So once you have Pokeballs and you find a Rattata, that is the encounter for the route. If you fail to catch the Pokemon, you do not get an encounter for that route. Okay. This also works the same in this game. So I'm going to be doing Ultra Moon as my first one my first attempt here. This also is true for gifted Pokemon. So in some games, there are a set of Pokemon that you will just be given. So in Generation 1, um, just think of your Eevee and Celadon City. If you get the Eevee in Celadon City, then you have no other encounters in Celadon City. You can't fish, you can't go to the game corner and get a Scyther or a Dratini. You can't do these things. That is if you take the gifted Eevee, that is your one encounter for the city. In Ultra Moon, it's pretty easy because from what I remember, the only gifted Pokemon in Ultra Moon is the Poipole, which you don't get until really late in the game. So if we get that far, then phenomenal. Then Ultra Necropolis or whatever, that encounter is the Poipole because that's what's gifted to you. Okay, so this is the rule that makes it. This is one of the like main rules that makes Nuzlocke difficult, is you really get a very narrow range of Pokemon. Okay, so the other rule that makes this very difficult, and the thing that actually makes Nuzlocke difficult, is not just that you're limited in the choice of Pokemon you can use, but even more so, you're limited because you cannot heal your Pokemon during battle. Okay, so I cannot open my bag and get a potion and midway through a battle say, I'm going to use this turn to heal up my Pokemon. That is not how this works. If you have a recovery move, then fine, you can use that because that's on your Pokemon. If your Pokemon is holding a berry, they're allowed to do that because you've given them that berry before the battle started. You're not actively intervening during the battle. So you cannot heal your Pokemon during the battle aside from if they have a recovery move or if they have a held item. This does genuinely make um, the Nuzlocke difficult, especially with the way that we're doing it, which we'll get to in just a second. But yeah, no healing. Um, and the last piece of this that makes Nuzlocke difficult is there are Sun and Moon are a little complicated, more complicated than other games, but anytime that you have an upcoming boss encounter, which is how all the Pokemon games work, you cannot over level that boss encounter. If you accidentally level a Pokemon over the next boss's level, you cannot use that Pokemon until the boss is beaten. Okay. So in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which is what we're playing this time, the way that this works is we have two kinds of bosses. I do not count Gladion, I don't count your rival, I don't count those. We count throughout the main series until we get to the like Elite Four. We count the totem Pokemon or the trial Pokemon. So in this case, the first one, because we're going to do Ultra Moon, is the trial Raticate. So from the start of the game, I cannot over level 12 until I beat this Raticate. Okay? And then the other thing is along with the trials, there are what, four what are called Kahuna battles or grand trials, and those are also considered a next boss. So once we beat the Raticate, the next boss is the Kahuna, and that is what we can't over level. So after level 12, we'll be able to level up to level 16, but not over. Okay? So what this means is that I can't just make the game easier for me by grinding levels. I will get to a point where I plateau and I cannot grind anymore. And then the last thing, and what makes this particularly hard, because really and truthfully, Nuzlocks are sometimes difficult, but not particularly difficult for me anymore. I've been doing them for like 7 years. The piece that makes this very difficult is that I'm doing it deathless. And my definition of deathless is slightly different than other people's definitions of deathless. My definition of deathless means that in a mandatory fight, so only fights that you must do in order to progress in the game, if you lose a Pokemon, if a Pokemon faints, which is shown kind of in the picture here, if a Pokemon faints, if their HP goes to zero and they faint, you lose. You lose the entire run, you stop, you do not you don't keep going, you reset the game and you have to start over from scratch. The reason I do this is because it is genuinely very difficult. I have beaten probably about half, a little over half of the main series games Deathless before. I've never beaten Ultra Moon Deathless. Ultra Moon is by far one of the most difficult games to do Deathless, um, for a variety of reasons that we'll talk about while playing. But yes, so this is the key difficulty here is that if a single Pokemon faints during a mandatory battle, it's over. Okay. Okay. So with this, these are kind of the main Nuzlocke rules. These are the things that make this challenging, the things that make this much more difficult than a standard Pokemon game. Along with this, there are a couple other rules that we self-impose that are some for my own mental health and others just because they are the standard Nuzlocke. Um, these are the last six. These are the kind of the other rules. You have to nickname every Pokemon you catch. This is just a remnant from the original person who made up Nuzlocking. You have to play on set mode. What this means is that if you don't play on set mode, when you faint a Pokemon, you get prompted to automatically switch your Pokemon. We can't do that. Um, if you fail to catch an encounter on a route, you do not get another try. There is a chance with Ultra Moon that I am going to take this rule away because Ultra Moon is particularly difficult, and losing specific encounters can make it almost impossible to beat. But we'll see. We'll try to do it with this. This number three rule is the rule that I'm most likely to give up. Shiny Pokemon are discolored Pokemon. They're very rare. I think in this game it's like a 1 in 4,068, 168 chance or something. So it's exceptionally rare to find a shiny. Because of that, my opinion on shinies is that if you get one, so if I've already encountered a Pokemon on a route and I'm grinding and I find a shiny, I can catch and use that shiny. I think that they are really rare Pokemon. I think they're really exciting and you should be able to use them. My rule with it is that I'm never going to shiny hunt in order to get more Pokemon, because that's boring. Um, so the other piece of this that most Nuzlockers know, but I think is a good question is if I've already caught a Pokemon once for a route, let's use the Rattata as the example. If on the first route I find a Rattata and I catch it, then on the second route, if my first encounter is a Rattata again, that's not counted as my first encounter. The first encounter is the first encounter of a Pokemon from an evolutionary line you have not caught. Okay. And this just makes it so that you don't have six Rattatas and you get a little bit more diversity throughout your game. Um, and it can lead to really cool strats to make sure you get specific Pokemon. Um, The last bit is I'm not going to cheat in rare candies. And because I'm not cheating in rare candies, what that means is that I'm going to have to grind. That means I'm going to have to battle some trainers, I'm going to have to battle wild Pokemon, and I don't think it's fun for me to have to be like on and strategizing 100% in the battles that don't matter. So if I have a Pokemon that faints when I'm grinding its level, if I'm grinding a Ralts, I don't care. We're not going to count that as a death because I could have theoretically not done that battle and just continued on to the next mandatory battle. Yes, it complicates things a little bit, but to me, the only other way to make this fun is to just put in a bunch of rare candies, and maybe we'll do that eventually. There are certain games that I will do that with, but Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, I don't think will be. But okay, so this is how Nuzlocke work. The point to take away is that they are very difficult. Um, Today is going to be a little bit of a boring. Um, I actually have to figure out. Okay. Today is going to be a little bit of a boring uh thing. I guess beginning to this because Ultra Sun and Moon start really slowly. So I think all that we're going to try to get through today is the opening cutscenes and the getting a starter and probably getting to the uh, point to where like maybe we'll get to the trainer school and then we'll call it a night. Um, a lot of what I'll be talking about while we go is kind of things to think about while you Nuzlocke. It can be really fun, especially Deathless Nuzlockes, because I think people don't do them as often, especially the way that I'm going to be doing them. And so, yeah. So I'm starting with Ultramoon for two reasons. One, because Gen 7 is my favorite gen. I think that it is really pretty. I think it's where Pokemon kind of got hit the right balance between the beauty of the graphics, because I think Gen 7 looks really good in comparison to later gens. Um, and where they also kind of got difficulty correct. Um, and so we're going to name ourselves No Death, and then we're going to give a number to denote where we are in terms of how many times we've lost this, because I expect that we are going to lose this so much that I'll switch from Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon to a different game and try a different one. Um, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are, in my opinion, definitely the hardest games to Deathless. I think they're the hardest games to Nuzlocke, although I think Black and White 2 um, are around the same difficulty. So the reason that I think that Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are much more difficult to Deathless Nuzlocke than Black and White 2, which I think is Black and White 2 and Platinum, I think are the other two Pokemon games that people would probably argue are exceptionally difficult. Um, those games, you can have a wide array of encounters and still progress. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the first island that you're on is exceptionally difficult. You must get the right RNG. You must get the right encounters, and there are a couple encounters you can get, but Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon have such a wide variety of Pokemon that you can encounter, which is awesome and it's a lot of fun and it makes for really unique Nuzlocks. Um, but especially for the first trial, as well as one battle before it, you kind of have to get the perfect encounters in order to move on. Um, some people may say that that makes it less fun, and I can understand that argument. I think that there are fun like ways to attempt to like get lucky and RNG your way through these first battles. Um, but because of Island 1, I think Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are harder than Black and White 2. I think late game Black and White 2 is probably more difficult than Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I don't know that for sure. Um, I have gotten really far in an Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon Deathless. I've never um I think I've gotten to the Elite Four before and then lost at the Elite Four. Once you get past especially the very beginning of Island 3, and we'll talk about all of this more as we go through. But especially once you get through the very beginning of Island 3, I think that Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon becomes pretty easy. Not easy, easy, but like compared to Black and White 2 or Platinum, I think the later mid game is pretty easy. And then you get to Lusamine, you get to like the last Lusamine battle. And I think from there, the difficulty skyrockets again. And I do think it's much harder late game. So the very end of Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, I think is much more difficult than Black or White 2 or Platinum. I do think that Platinum is very difficult. I actually found Platinum to be I have beaten Platinum. I haven't beaten Black or White 2 or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon Deathless, so I tend to be of the opinion that Platinum's quite a bit easier. I can't think of many true choke points in Platinum. I think Fantina is very difficult, but I think that you're equipped with enough Pokemon that you can find a way through Fantina. Um, like I said, in a way that I think Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, their choke points are so bad. Um, oh, I have to remember how to do this. Okay. So we are through the very, very beginning cutscene. As you can tell, that took us like 12 minutes. And so this is kind of the reason people don't like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon is that they don't make skippable cutscenes and the cutscenes take a long time to get through. That's why today is going to be a little long, but we're not actually going to get very far is because of all of these cutscenes. Um, but so we're through the first bad one. We're going to get our starter soon, which is good. And I'll talk about why you would choose the different starters. Unfortunately, well, I mean, you could argue that in any game there is a correct starter to take. Unfortunately, in Ultra Sun and Moon, I think it is particularly bad in that I think that really there is only one justifiable starter to take. I think that there are two starters that are good, but I think one of them is so far beyond the others that there's not a good reason to not to take them. And then unfortunately, the last of the three is just not useful. Like it just doesn't do anything. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay. So in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, you have what I think are three of the best starters. I think that they're like a really good trio, which is Rowlet, which is this little grass owl, Litten, which is this little fire cat, and Poplio, which is this little gay water seal, I think. I don't know what you would call Poplio. I actually don't know, just off the top of my head. But okay, great, awesome. They saved us from being attacked by the little Trump gopher thing. So okay, so these are the starters, and then this is the professor, the hot Professor Kukui. We love him, and you get a lot of him in the game, which is good and not a super annoying way. This is another reason that I think Gen 7 kind of threads the needle with the people around you being not super annoying, but also present in a way that you would expect friends in your life to be present, I suppose. But okay, so who is the useless starter, who is the most useful starter, and who is the kind of in between? Um, so unfortunately, uh, sorry, well, let's get through this little part really quickly. Okay, go ahead and choose your starter. So, unfortunately, despite the fact that one of my favorite starters of all time is Rowlet, is the little grass owl, um, I cannot think of a battle that Rowlet does by itself. Um, the second totem Pokemon is the water and bug totem, and Rowlet is good. Like specifically, you'll have its middle evolution, and it is good for that battle. But you're going to get a flying type before that battle anyways. And you're going to get like a way to make it likely that you'll beat the battle. So I don't think that Rowlet, and that is pretty much from what I can think of, the only battle that Rowlet, just off the top of my head, that Rowlet really is great for. That's not good enough for a starter. We'll get to Litten in a second. Poplio is very good. And I think late game Poplio may be the best of the three. Poplio eventually will be Fairy type, which, as anyone who knows Pokemon knows that Fairy type is broken. So Poplio, I think, is a very good choice. However, I think that there's no doubt that Litten is the best Gen 7 starter. I think you can make an argument later game it may be Poplio, but I think early game Sun and Moon is or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are really difficult. And I think Litten is the best for the early game. I think he helps you the most and has the best stats for what you need to do in the early game. So we're going to choose Litten. I'm also happy to choose Litten because Litten looks a lot like my crazy cat, who definitely has a fiery personality. And because of that, look how cute this is. It's such a good Gen 7 is because of the constraints that the 3DS had, it just looks so good. It doesn't look too cartoony, it doesn't look too bad. It's just great. But again, Litten reminds me of my cat. So while the naming convention, I haven't really decided what it'll be this time, we're going to name Litten after my cat Percy. Um, Sorry, I'm still trying to figure out how you. Okay, that's fine. So we have Percy, and Percy's been added to our party. And at this point, we will have a little bit of an ability to just kind of walk around by ourselves. Unfortunately, we do not get Pokeballs for a little bit of time yet. So we do not get our first encounter, which our first encounter is shit and it's automatically generated and you cannot control it anyways, so that doesn't really matter in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but we can't get any of our encounters. So what we're excited to do, however, once we get the chance. So I actually don't know. This is a new emulator for me. So what I need to do, X. Okay, not X. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find what start is. So start is Z. Okay. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at what Percy's nature is. Okay. So this is for the beginning of the game a little bit of a bad nature, but eventually it will be a good nature. And what a nature is as if my pointer is showing, which I believe it should be, we have these different stats of our Pokemon. And what's blue means that this Pokemon's nature, they grow less and have less stats in the blue stat, so in its special attack, and it has increased stats in its special defense. And the difference between attack and special attack is, I hit the wrong button. If we look at Percy's moves, Percy's really good for this. Scratch, we can see this little orange icon appear. What this means is that it's a contact move, and contact moves use the attack stat to calculate how much damage it will do. And then when you get a physical move that hits you, it is your physical defense or your defense stat that decides how well you resist the attack. Um, Ember is a special move. Okay, it's a fire type move, which we are also fire type. So it's a special move. It has this little blue thing, and what this means is that if it's a special move, if it's a non-contact move, generally it uses the special attack as the damage calculation, and it uses the special defense if you're getting hit. So what this means is that this move, because Percy is this nature, this move will do less damage. However, if we get hit by special moves, we will resist them better due to our defense. Okay, so it is a kind of bad nature for early game, but a very good nature for late game because Percy is a physical attacker generally. So we're walking through. Again, we do not have Pokeballs. I will show you that we do not have Pokeballs. Um, and so this does not count as our first encounter because we would have no capacity to catch him. But as you can see, we have no Pokeballs, so no ability to catch. Okay, so this is not our encounter for this route. So we can use Scratch. And so at this point, we're going to attack it and try to kill it simply so that we get some experience and can level up. I have no healing items, but remember that I would not be able to use healing items regardless. Um, okay. Okay. Killed the Rattata. Phenomenal. Unfortunately, because I do not put rare candies in, we are going to have to grind, which is fine. Just means more time. So I'm going to go try to get some of these items that are laying on the ground. I don't remember what they are at this point, but we shall see. Okay. Ember. So, I'm going to assume that most people who watch this know how Pokemon works, but as a very quick explainer, there are type matchups. So, Fire type is super effective against this Pokemon Caterpie, which is a bug type. So, using a Fire type move will do double the damage because that Pokemon is weak to Fire type moves. Okay, and it's good because leveling up will make some of the early battles easier, um, which they're not particularly difficult, but easier means faster, so and less chance of dying at battles that actually matter, which is good. So I am not going to run from many of these battles at this point. You can run from a battle, and so long as you are faster than the other Pokemon, you are likely to be able to get away. If you're not, you can still get away, but it's less of odds. I don't really want to have my Pokemon faint right now because that would be not great. So we'll use this potion that we picked up. And because we're outside of battle, we're not in a battle, we can use the potion. I don't play by Nuzlocke rules that state that you cannot use healing items ever. I play by Nuzlocke rules that say you cannot use healing items in battle. Um, I don't think you can do a Deathless Nuzlocke if you can't if you can't heal outside of battle. I don't think it's possible. So this is Litten. And then I'm going to be challenged to battle. So this is my rival. In early Pokemon games, as you'll probably see when I play them later, the rival is very antagonistic against you, and they choose the Pokemon who you have a type disadvantage to. So fire is super effective against grass, but is weak to water. And water is, yeah, it works as a trio. Um, in the later games, Pokemon wanted to make it easier and less like the rival is less antagonistic and more of your friend. And so now they choose the Pokemon that has a type disadvantage against you, which is good for a Deathless Nuzlocke because it means that I'm not particularly concerned um, about this battle. I know that I'm going to like it's very unlikely for me to lose. Um, while in some of the earlier generations, the initial rival battle is actually somewhat difficult. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how difficult this one proves to be. I don't expect it to be particularly difficult, however. Let's see. Okay, so despite the fact that our special attack is lowered, because this is double damage on Rowlet, it is probably the best move to use. And as we can see, Rowlet, one of the other unfortunate things about Rowlet's line is that its stats just are not particularly good. It is somewhat defensive, but not very offensive. And because it doesn't excel in either of these, it's kind of just a useless Pokemon for the most part. And so we'll see that 3 Embers will be able to kill it. Very easy, no challenge here. And there's not expected to be a challenge yet. The challenge comes probably not today. Probably tomorrow's play will be where you see a lot of challenge because this very beginning is not super difficult. It's the next step that is incredibly difficult. But okay, so great. We actually grew 2 levels there because we were really close to level 6 before the battle. And trainers Pokemon give a lot more EXP, which is great, which means that when we're grinding, we're going to be trying to grind with trainers until we run out of them, at which point we'll have to grind with wild Pokemon, which is not very fun. Oh, there is my cat. Excuse him. That is who my Litten is named after. He is he has a lot of personality, is what we'll say. Thank you, Percy. Oh, okay. So again, we're in the first kind of village of the game, or town, I suppose is what this is called. This is where we'll fight the eventual Kahuna or like main boss of the island. We'll meet him, I think, in just a minute. Um, but right now, what we need to do is we need to go follow the white girl, and you'll see her in just a second. And we need to go save a whitey down a well. Um, I do agree with people when they say that it's annoying that you can't skip these cutscenes, but I do think that the game is fun enough after the cutscenes, after you get through this initial group of cutscenes, that it's definitely worth it. Um, so let's see. I think right after we turn here, am I? There we go. I was gonna say, I was like, did I forget how this game starts? But I did not. I have played this game a lot, so it is unlikely that we're going to get to many places where I don't know, like knee-jerk reaction, what to do next. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 battles, I believe, in just a second. Neither of these battles are particularly difficult. I suppose that so this is actually this Pokemon is going to become the legendary of this game. One of the things that I think is kind of cool about how Generation 7 approaches, excuse Percy for making a lot of noise. One of the things that I think is really cool about how Generation 7 approaches the legendary is they're not really talked about all that much before you meet them. And then you kind of grow, or this character. Um, this girl has and grows the legendary into the legendary from this like smaller form. And I think that what they were trying to do is make you feel a bit more connected to the legendary, and I definitely think that they succeed in doing it. Um, yeah. So basically, these Spearow, which is a kind of flying type Pokemon, are attacking the uh, Cosmog, I think is what it's called. And so we have to go save it by attacking the Spearow. And I can't remember if it's one or two Spearow. I always think it's two, but part of me thinks it might only be one. Um, if you choose Rowlet, this fight it can be technically more difficult. I believe this Spearow has a flying type move, which would be super effective against the Rowlet. Okay, so actually, let's take a second to talk about this status condition. So we just burned the Spearow, and that's good. It's really unlikely to happen with fire type moves because the burn mechanic is so good. And so if a Pokemon is burned, what it means is that it's going to take like 1/12, I think, of its, or maybe 1/8 of its total HP every turn at the end of the turn as just direct damage. However, that's actually not why burn is really good, because it's not doing that much damage, residual damage to the Pokemon. Why burn is really good is that you lose, I believe your attack stat is cut in 1/3. So you lose a third of your attack stat whenever you're burned. And so what it means is that if a Pokemon is a physical attacker and we need to be able to tank hits from them, we can use the burn status to make it a lot more likely that we can actually tank those hits by cutting their attack stat, which is really good. And yeah, maybe it is only one Spearow fight. I'm getting the vibe that it is. Um, hello, Percy. So now we're going to save the Cosmog, and then the Cosmog is going to crash out over the Spearows, and it's going to destroy the bridge. And we are going to need saving by one of the other legendary Pokemon of this game, whose name is, oh, watch out, Percy. Ugh. Whose name is Tapu Koko, I believe. Um, we are not going to get the chance to even attempt to catch this legendary Pokemon. It's locked until post game, and post game is not part of a Nuzlocke. Um, I generally follow the rule that legendary Pokemon are not usable. Legendary Pokemon tend to have really good stats. There are certain legendaries that I think are okay to use. In Generation 3, the legendary trio are what are called the Reggies. They're kind of bad. And so if you want to like manipulate it so that your first encounter on that route is the Reggie, I think there are usually, other than Reggie Steel, I think there are better encounters than either Reggie Rock or Reggie Ice. So if you want to use them, my take on it is like, sure. The Lake Spirits are kind of the same. Azelf is pretty good, but Mesprit and Uxie are pretty mid. So like, yeah, I think the easier way to do it is just say if a Pokemon is considered a legendary or a mythical, you just don't use them. However, I think Nuzlockes are all about you having fun. And so if you feel like it would be more fun to, um, sorry, if you feel like it would be more fun to have a legendary, then, go for it. It's just going to make the game easier. And my take on Nuzlockes is that you're trying to make the game hard. So why make it easier in some way if you're trying to make it hard, right? But, play it however you want. Okay, so this is another long cutscene. We're kind of getting to the end of the really long cutscenes, and we'll be able to play a bit more as we choose and as we want um, in the near future. Okay, so this guy right here is the final boss of the island. He's not super hard. He is, well, actually, that's not entirely true. He is difficult. He is, oh geez, Percy. He is probably the most difficult of the kahunas, um, of the island bosses. Maybe not. Yeah, I think he's probably the most difficult, but it's just because you have so few encounters that are good to take him on, um, that he becomes difficult in that sense, not that his Pokemon are particularly difficult. Yeah. So I'm kind of just skipping through. I'm not really engaging with the what people are talking about, um, because really and truthfully, stories in Pokemon games are not super interesting. They're normally about friendship and how great it is to have friends. And it is great to have friends, but I don't need to read it every single time. And I'd rather just talk about like the theory of nuzlocking. But okay, great. Uh, right after this, so I believe I have to fight my rival again. I've never really understood why they have you fight him twice in a row. The second fight is more difficult because he has two Pokemon. But unless we get really unlucky, we should be okay. His second Pokemon is a Pichu, and what that means is that if you start with Poplio, so Pichu is electric type, and I believe he has Thunder Shock on it, an electric type move. So what that means is that if you choose Poplio, you probably want to grind more at the very beginning to get to a higher level, because Pichu can beat you. Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that that rhymed. But Pichu can beat you. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I am wrong. We do not fight him yet. I guess we fight him. I think we learn how to catch a Pokemon and then we fight him. So great. We are talking to our mother, and then we're going to leave in just a second, and learn how to catch Pokemon and be given our Pokeballs, which is great because it lets us do our encounters. Um, like I said, I believe our first encounter is kind of scripted, in that I have only ever caught one singular type of Pokemon in the first route, unfortunately. Um, so we just had a knock on our front door, and this is going to be Professor Kukui, who is going to let him in. And we let hot men into our house, so that's fine. Um, and yeah, he's gonna go take us to teach us how to catch Pokemon and give us our Pokeballs, which is great because once you get your Pokeballs, really the Nuzlocke becomes live. A lot of people are of the opinion that if you faint a Pokemon before you get Pokeballs, it just doesn't count. I tend to be of that opinion, although Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are great because the odds of you fainting a Pokemon before you get Pokeballs are basically zero. It's very easy. Um, and we're gonna ratchet up the complication in just a second anyways. But okay. So we'll talk a little bit about how catching Pokemon works. Um, as we're going to get taught how to do it. Um, so basically, I am not controlling this. The computer is controlling this, and it's basically just a tutorial for how to catch a Pokemon. And so, really, what you want to do, according to Pokemon, is you want to attack the Pokemon and get their HP bar down, ideally to red, ideally to 1 HP, and then you want to throw a Pokeball at them. And the way Pokeballs work is that depending on a Pokemon's level and a Pokemon's rarity, so each Pokemon has a different rarity score, um, that calculates the likelihood that any specific Pokeball will catch any specific Pokemon. So all the Pokemon on the really early routes are super low leveled and very low rarity score, which means that often you don't even have to attack them in order to make it likely that you'll catch them. They are so likely to be caught in a Pokeball that you can just throw a Pokeball, which is good because what we really, really don't want to do in this Nuzlocke, especially in a Deathless Nuzlocke, is miss an encounter. There are going to be specific encounters which are really are really difficult to get, and you're likely to miss them if you encounter a specific Pokemon. But this specifically, um, these next few encounters, so long as we have Pokeballs, should be fine. So, in theory, the Pokemon you can find on this route in this specific area should be Gumshoos, which is the little Trump-looking thing, and Charjabug. Unfortunately, I have only ever found Charjabug, and I believe that this is a scripted encounter. I think that this has to be what you encounter, or Grubbin. Grubbin evolves into Charjabug, um, which sucks because this Pokemon is completely unusable, and does absolutely nothing for your game until super, super late game. So if you want it to be good, and its final evolution is very good, but it cannot evolve into its final evolution until you take it to one of the final areas of the game. So you would have to grind and train this Pokemon up to a high level to make it usable. And in the meantime, its stats are pretty garbage. It's a bug type, which is not super useful. And yes, it is also an electric type in its evolutions, but its stats are so bad that it's really difficult to use. Um, I still have no idea what the naming convention is going to be, so we'll call this give me a second. Oh, there we go. We'll call it Blub, I suppose. Sorry, still getting used to the controls for this emulator. Blub. Okay, great. We have little Blub on our team. Even though it's a pretty shit Pokemon, we will still try to check its nature just to see what we have. So again, Percy's nature is special attack down, special defense up. This is an even worse nature for this Pokemon. So for the first two evolutions, which is what it would be for the most part, this is not bad in that like it is a physical attacker. The problem is that its final evolution, which is really good, is a phenomenal special attacker, and this means that it has less special attack stat and more attack stat. Yeah, what can you do? We all roll bad natures sometimes. Um, so okay, so that was our one encounter for this route. So if we encounter another Pokemon, regardless of if it's a new Pokemon, we cannot catch it. Okay, this is another one, a Baniri. I personally really don't like Baniri anyways, and I don't think that it's super, super useful at the moment. In theory, it could be useful for the totem Pokemon, the first island trial. The problem is that I don't think it's actually possible to catch Baniri because of the scripted encounter. So if you could, it might be useful, but you can't. So, oh well. But okay, we're leveling up again. Remember, our level cap is level 12. So we cannot go over level 12. So we're going to have to be careful in how we level up Percy versus the other Pokemon. But for now, I actually want Percy to be kind of a high level so that we can just sweep through um, the our rival fight that's coming up. The other mechanic here that's coming into play is this is a trainer. You know that she's a trainer, and you know that you can fight her because when you get close, you get kind of this narrowing of the camera. And if you walk into their field of view, they'll challenge you to a battle. Um, I don't remember what Pokemon this character has. This battle, you cannot get to the next stage, you cannot progress the story without doing this battle. So this battle is technically mandatory. If I lost a Pokemon to this battle, I would have to start over. I'm not concerned about losing a Pokemon. I don't think it's very likely that I will. Um, but this is one of the things that we count as a mandatory battle. If you cannot keep going in the story until you do it, it's mandatory. However, I will try to show you a trainer that is not mandatory, just to give you like an example of what we mean. But basically, any trainer that you just, it's optional to fight or not. But okay, great. So this is an optional trainer. I probably will fight him just for the experience, but because we can go around him, uh, if we lost to him, we would not count it as a death, simply because the only reason I'm choosing to fight him right now is because I want the experience points. Um, yeah. And there are arguments as to like not doing what I'm doing. The problem is that there are so many optional battles that I'll have to do throughout this Nuzlocke that it just feels worth it to do this so that I don't have to be strategizing on all of them. Because while these are very easy, especially since I chose Percy and he has a fire type move, um, while these are very easy, the later ones will not be. Okay. Okay. So great. We defeated youngster Jimmy. We got a little bit of money, and we also got a little bit of experience. And now I think we're gonna have one more cutscene until our rival fight, or maybe like two more cutscenes. We'll do this optional. Okay. Okay. So this Pokemon is so underleveled compared to us that we are really not concerned about anything. So I could be switching and training my Grubbin, which is a lower level. The problem is that Grubbin is not useful, and he's not going to make. He may vary later, like when I'm doing some of the more difficult battles. He may be somewhat useful as like a Pokemon I can switch into to tank attacks. And so I will grind him eventually. But at the moment, Litten is so good that I don't see a point. Litten can get us through the next couple battles fast, which is what you're trying to do. At the beginning of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, you wanna fly quickly, so that you can get to the part where you're really controlling. Because this whole section is kind of a tutorial. Um, which is hilarious because after this tutorial section, you do another tutorial section, which is the flaw of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. One thing that I like as a Nuzlocker for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon is we can see from my Pokemon that my Litten is hurt. Um, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, before they're really difficult fights, they almost always heal your Pokemon themselves, like for free. And I like that because what it means is that I don't have to go run to find a place to heal my Pokemon, which kind of just kills time. Yeah, it makes the game easier, which I think some people argue about. But we're doing a Deathless Nuzlocke. This is hard enough as it is. We do not need even more difficult constraints. Yes. So, okay. Great talking to the Kahuna, and basically what he's telling us is once we're ready, we can go fight How, our our rival, and once we finish our rival, we have one more section before we have a bit more freedom. Yes, very long cutscenes. This is the flaw. In the future, what I may do is I may just do this section without taping it if we lose a bunch, just so that we're not having to watch me do the same little section over and over again. That's really boring. But okay, we just got healed. And so now we'll do the Pokemon battle. And like I said, Pichu does make this battle um, riskier. And it's because Pichu can paralyze you. And just like the burn status uh, cuts your attack, the paralysis status cuts your speed. So you move much more slowly. And more than that, the paralysis stat makes it so that you have a 25% chance on any turn not to be able to move. So what we're really looking for in this battle is If we're really lucky, we'll burn the Pichu. It's very unlikely. You should not count on burning. Um, but what we're looking for is to get through Pichu without getting paralyzed. Even if we get paralyzed, it's not the end of the world, but it makes it more likely that we lose. And at this point, it's all kind of statistical chances. So what you'll notice is that despite the fact that my special attack stat is lower, I am focusing a lot on using my Ember attack, which is a special attack. The reason that I'm doing that is because it's fire type. And because I am a fire type Pokemon, the stat of Ember gets boosted a little bit, which means it's going to be doing more damage than Tackle anyways. Okay, so because we have leveled up quite a bit, um, we really do not have to worry about that Pichu. We killed it in two goes. It used Charm on us. Charm lowers our attack stat, but because we're using a special attack, it doesn't matter because we use the special attack stat instead of the attack stat, which was lowered. Okay, so Growl, just like Charm, lowers the attack stat. We don't care about that. The AI in this game very early on is kind of bad. It gets better as time goes on. It gets more difficult. But okay, one of the reasons we choose Litten is because Litten gets us quickly through these very early fights. Um, Litten is getting a little high in the level, in his levels. And so what I'm going to do is after my next encounter, I'm going to switch to that Pokemon because all of the encounters in the next route are good. Some are better than others, but they're all good. And so we'll switch to that and train that Pokemon for now. Okay. So basically, we were given this Z ring, and we'll talk more about what the Z ring is later when it actually comes up. But basically, what this means is we're through the first tutorial section, and now all we have to do is get our Pokedex, and then we can get move on to the second tutorial section, which you have a lot more freedom in it. We're gonna get there and get that encounter before we end tonight. We'll try to end with a fun encounter. The second tutorial encounter is um, one of the encounters that can decide how well this run will go. Okay, so we're being given amulets that allow us to take part in the gym system of this game, which are the trials. Okay, great. And now I think we are going to be teleported back to our home in just a second, and then we can keep going and get to our third encounter, I suppose, of the game, which is the first one where it's a choice, uh, and uh, a non-consequential choice for the first island, but a consequential choice for the second island. Meaning that if we get a very specific Pokemon, then the second totem challenge becomes easier than the others. Than if we got the others. Yeah. But none of the three possible Pokemon, we'll talk about what the three are in a second. None of the three possible Pokemon are bad by any means. Um, yeah. Okay, so basically we're going to tell our mom that we're going to go off on this adventure and leave her, and she's just going to say, "Great, you're 10 years old. You can do that." Because that's good parenting in the Pokemon world. Okay, our Pokemon got healed, not that it mattered. And now, okay, we are meeting with Lily, and Lily is going to take us to the professor and take us through the next route. Hmm. Very cute Meowth, a very cute cat Pokemon. I think the Pokemon designers really like cats and are not as big on dogs. That is the vibe that I kind of get from Pokemon, which is fine. We all like cats as well. Okay, so this is a new route, um, a designated route different from the last one, and I'll show you how we discern that. There are going to be moments in this game where I break that rule, and I will describe to you why I think it's okay to break this initial route rule, which I'm going to show you. Okay, so basically what she's telling us is we can jump over this ledge as a shortcut, which we'll use in a second. But I want to really nail down what a route is really quickly so that you understand. Okay, so if I go to where I last caught a Pokemon, what we're going to see is, oh, it's not going to let us. Basically, what we're going to see is it's going to tell us that we're on a new route. So the route that we're currently on is a different route. And so I'm going to go into this grass. And basically what we can get is we can get a psychic and dark type. We can get a psychic and water type, or we can get a water and flying type. And what we want, unfortunately, is the water and flying type, which is what we got. So this is Wingull. This is a water and flying type. It's not a phenomenal Pokemon. It's pretty good in Gen 3, but in Gen 7, it's not super, super good. But we like it here. I'm just going to try to catch it without damaging it. If I can't catch it, then I'll damage it and we'll play it that way. Um, we like it here for two reasons. Number one, the second island challenge is weak. Well, the final boss of this island is fighting type, which is weak to flying, so that's good. And the other reason, and then another reason we like it is the second island challenge, or the second totem challenge, is weak to flying as well. So we like it for that. And then finally, we really like it because in later routes, there are really, really good possible encounters that you cannot get if you don't get a Wingull here, or you're much less likely to get if you don't get a Wingull here. Okay, so this hasn't been working. So I'm actually going to use Lick because Lick has a really low base attack, so it's not going to kill it. What we were hoping for is that it would what we were hoping for is that it would paralyze the Wingull, but it didn't. But that's okay because this should be enough to catch the Wingull. If it's not, we're gonna have to worry about getting. Ooh, we shall see. Wowza. Let's see how much this does to Blub. We really don't want to fail this. So theoretically, like statistically, we have a very good chance of catching this Wingull. So I'm not really sure why this has proven to be so difficult, but that's okay. Um, we're gonna hope that this catches. Okay, so basically the point here, and this is actually a very good point to make. It is really, really easy to miss encounters. If the Wingull had done a lot of damage to Blub, we would have been forced to just run away from the Wingull and or potentially lose if our Pokemon faints. Um, and so because of this, we really we have to be careful and we have to try to catch Pokemon in a smart way. Um, I have no idea what to name this, so I'm just gonna name it Quack. Quack the Wingull. Okay, this is a good encounter. That was quite risky and quite unlucky that we had that it took us so long to catch. Just to make sure that I don't believe there are any required trainers, but I'm gonna go back because I can heal. I believe if I talk to my mom, she'll heal my Pokemon. And so now we can just make sure that we're not likely to faint a Pokemon. Oh, I did not know she gave us a Pokeball. You learn something new every time. Um, okay, so let's check our. Okay, so this is a fully neutral nature. There are no stats that are lessened and no stats that are raised, which is perfectly fine. Um, so what I think we'll do is, oh, one of the things I need to figure out how to do is, there we go. So we'll put Quack first, and we'll train Quack up a little bit. So we're gonna do this shortcut, and we're going to do the last really long cutscene, which is going to give us our Pokedex. And then that allows us to move on, and that gets us through tutorial number one, which is by far the longest tutorial. I mean, we've been doing this for an hour basically, and we're still in tutorial one. This is the problem, and if I have to redo this, we'll skip this from now on. But I think for today at the very least, it's a good way to talk about the mechanics of Pokemon and the mechanics of Nuzlocke for people who kind of are not used to watching or used to playing Pokemon. Okay. Oh, it really is. It really is the flaw with Gen 7. I understand people who don't like Gen 7 because of this, or like don't like replaying Gen 7 because of this, but it's such a good game after this. Um, that it's so worth it. Um, so in this game, we introduce kind of a unique Pokedex that actually has a Pokemon inside of it called Rotom. What this means is that our Pokedex is going to talk to us, which is not super fun. But it's cute and it will give us power-ups. We can't use any of the in-battle power-ups, obviously, because that's basically using a healing item or using a stat boosting item, which I don't allow. However, what it will do is it is going to give us rolls for more rare Pokemon, which I believe that, in my opinion, because this is a mechanic of the game, I think that we're allowed to use them. It will also give us extra EXP points boosts, which I also use because I don't put rare candies in, so it makes grinding a bit easier. So there are things that are really fun and nice about having the Rotom Pokedex, but it does mean that it talks to us, which is mildly annoying. Um, and I'm not actually certain how this emulator works in terms of allowing us to engage with Rotom. So we'll see. We'll see if we can actually do it on here. Okay, so we're almost done. We have the Rotom Dex, so we just need to finish this last little bit of talking. And then what we'll do is we're going to go do our last encounter for the night. And then after our last encounter, we'll call it a night, and we'll pick up back up with a bunch of trainer battles tomorrow. Or whenever I come back and do another one of these. Jesus Christ. Such long cutscenes. Okay. There's a day-night system in Pokemon Sun and Moon, which is great. We like that. It allows us to get certain kinds of Pokemon. Oh. I'm doing this at 11 p.m., which means that I am tired. I worked long hours before coming to do this. I even should be doing writing right now. But I've been wanting to do this for a while. So we prioritize doing this. But okay, so let's really quickly, we're going to do one trainer battle before we end. I don't see a reason to do others. I want this Wingull to be leveled up a little bit so that we have a little less grinding to do next time. Um, but yeah, so Young Goose, this is not a mandatory battle. You can skip this battle, so I'm not worried. This is just training. If we die, we die. And the reason you may ask why not just switch out a lot while training, and the reason is that if a Pokemon stays in for the whole battle, you get more EXP than if the Pokemon switches out. Uh, I'm not certain this is going to be possible to do with just Wingull. So we may be switching to, yeah, not possible with just Wingull. So we'll spread the EXP around by doing all three Pokemon. That'll make it so that our Litten Percy gets less EXP. I assume Blub can, yeah, just barely. Early stage, early game normal types, which is what Gumshoos is, are particularly difficult in Nuzlocke because Tackle is a normal type move that almost every Pokemon has. And so Gumshoos is a normal type, which means he gets the same type attack bonus. And so Yungoos just hits extra hard early on when you don't have a lot of defense points. Um, God damn it. We don't want Percy to level up anymore because we're going to need Percy for specific fights still. And so at this point, we're going to really have to lean on our Wingull and our Grubbin. Um, but yeah, so normal types, despite later on in the game being kind of the joke type, the really easy type to fight, um, early game normal types are quite threatening in Nuzlocke. Um, Again, this is not our first encounter, so we do not get this for free, and it's a Wingull anyway, so it doesn't matter. Did I level up with Quack? I did. Oh, that's nice. Oh, well, so here's another thing. My initial encounter was a level 4, and this Pokemon over here is a level 6, which means that we got really unlucky and that we could have gotten a level 6 Wingull, and we rolled the lowest possible level. It happens. It's fine. Okay, so here we are. We're in the next city, which is nice. And we're going to be taught really quickly about how Pokemon centers work. Basically, Pokemon centers are just where you can heal your Pokemon and switch your Pokemon out for other Pokemon that you've caught. And we can also buy items here, which is what they're telling us now. And then there's some coffee thing in Gen 7 that I've literally never done and never played, so I could not tell you anything about it, which is shocking because I think I've probably beaten this game like 40 times at this point. So I don't know why I've never played these like secondary mini games in Pokemon games are not interesting to me. I enjoy the main gameplay enough that I don't ever feel a need to try them out, I guess. Okay, so um, because we're about to try to do an encounter, I am going to switch Percy back to the start. And that's just because Percy is going to be able to tank the most attacks. Percy also has Lick, which, like I said before, is able to paralyze a Pokemon, potentially, assuming that we're not fighting a normal type, which I don't think you can encounter a normal type. I don't think the possible encounter table has a normal type. Um, I'm going to say this, and this is going to so this is the second tutorial section. This one you do have a lot more freedom for. It's just a bunch of trainer fights and it's teaching you about items and TMs, and we'll talk about them as we get to them on the next time. But so I'm going to tell you this, and it's going to jinx me, and it is by far the most likely encounter you have to get here. But the trainer school has some really, really good encounters. So for the early game, the best possible encounter you can get is Grimer. And that's because Grimer is pretty damn tanky. He's also dark type in this game, which is good for the first totem fight. But he also is a poison type and has the ability Poison Touch, which means that we could put the status of poison onto other Pokemon. I won't talk about that now, it's not necessary, but basically, the Pokemon we want the most for early game, which is what we care about right now because we got to get through the early game, the Pokemon we care about most is Grimer. After that, the best Pokemon for late game that we can encounter here is Magnemite. which is a steel type. Magnemite is decent for early game. He will make certain fights easier. Magnemite has a really low defense stat, though. And so early game Magnemite is not as useful as you would hope. It's not a particularly great early game steel, but we would be happy to have it. What we do not want, the one Pokemon we really don't want, is a Alolan Meowth. We do not want Meowth. It is not good, and we're gonna get it, I'm sure. There we go. That's the encounter is Alolan Meowth. That kind of sucks. That does we are we're not rolling the best encounter here, which sucks. But that's okay. We shall play through it anyways. Alolan Meowth is okay. It's not as bad as Grubbin, where Grubbin is not useful at all. Alolan Meowth, depending on its ability, can be useful, not bad. Um, but unfortunately, it is by far the worst and does not solve any of the difficult matchups we have coming. So it's the worst. It's also the most likely one you are to get. So in Deathless Nuzlocke, especially, you care a lot about the roles that you get. So we're gonna name this. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. We're gonna name this Tay. Um, okay, so this is going to be the last encounter. So we're going to just really quickly take a look at what our encounters stats are, and then we will call it for the night. So, okay. In a lot of ways, this is actually not the worst possible Meowth to get. It has a Technician ability, which means that it just powers up low attack stat moves, which is good for early game. We do like that ability. And I believe that means it gets a better ability when it evolves. It has, for what Meowth wants to do, a fine stat spread. Having more defense later in the game when it evolves is better because it has a defensive ability already. So great, not bad. And yeah, overall, it's not a good encounter, but it's one of the better stat rolls and ability rolls we possibly could get. It's also coming with this item Quick Claw. And basically, what the Quick Claw does is 30% of the time, if your Pokemon is slower than the opposing Pokemon, it will still move first, which is good. It's not going to be exceptionally useful to us um, for the time being, but it may be useful to us situationally later. Unfortunately, we also get a free one. So there may not be a huge reason to do it. What is Y on this? Give me a second. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Oh, that's Y. Okay. So we're gonna save our adventure. Great. And we will call it for a night. Uh, Thank you so much for coming. And if you have any comments on how to make it better, I'm happy to hear them. Yeah, thanks so much.